In this video, I'm going to talk about inner child healing. When you start your inner child healing journey, it's crucial to know that there are other inner parts that live within us that can really help your inner child healing journey or can somewhat make it more difficult. And that is, of course, the inner child, the inner parent, and the antagonist, the inner critic. So stay tuned because I'm gonna explain what they all have to do with one another and how they impact your healing journey and how you can deal with it. Hey everyone, I'm Christine. I help people navigate difficult life transitions, trauma healing, and transformation. So today I talk about inner child healing, the inner parent, and the inner critic. When we have lots of trauma, lots of wounding, when we grew up in a very difficult family, in a dysfunctional family, then in one way or another, we will have a very wounded inner child. If there is lots of trauma, complex trauma, developmental trauma, attachment trauma, or something really, really traumatic happened, like severe abuse emotionally, psychological or sexual, then there will be a fragmented inner child, just like the psyche will be fragmented in one way or another. And it's very, very important to start to retrieve your inner child and basically the parts that were exiled. And I already talked about that in another video, how you can start to make contact with your inner child and how you can help that that reintegration of the inner child and the healing, how you can help it along with things like getting a soul retrieval if you're interested in these kind of healing modalities, more like on the shamanic level or on the energy or on the spiritual level. It would help greatly when you do that very, very early in your journey to help you to make better contact with your inner child. So it's very, very important that you make as early as you can, as quick as you can, you make contact with your inner child. And the inner child is also somehow linked to our emotional body and to the subconscious mind, because I think it's mostly the inner child that is responsible for these difficult emotions that we mostly just pushed away, probably a lifetime that we numbed, that we suppressed. And it's just super important to do that reconnection also with your emotions and to let the emotions come up again and to feel them fully. And again, that happens in layers. It's not just a one-time thing. It's not like, it's like you're going to the gym and you cannot expect that when you go once that you lose 10 kilos of weight and put on 5 kilos of muscle or whatever. Like, it's an ongoing work and it needs a bit of time and patience. But I can tell you it's just the most important work you'll ever do and the most worthwhile. Like, I cannot even tell you how much it changed my life to heal my inner child, because it meant healing so much trauma. Almost all of it was on that level of the inner child. And the inner child is the one that feels so alone and so abandoned, and there is a lot of pain in there. It's also connected to the pain body, as Eckhart Tolle calls it. So the more you start to make contact with your inner child, the more you start to open your heart for your inner child, the more you tell it, you're safe with me, and I see you, and I love you, and you can trust me now, and I'm so sorry that I wasn't there for you, but I am now. The more you will become your own loving inner parent. You are starting to reparent your inner child. You start to give your inner child that love, that validation, that safety, that security that it probably never had, that you never had when you were a child for whatever reason, because your caregivers couldn't do that. So the more that inner child will trust you, the better you come in contact with your own emotions. It's all linked. And then at some point, and probably at the very beginning already of that process, you will encounter another inner part. And that's the inner critic. And sometimes it's also called the critical inner parent, because it's that negative voice in our mind, the negative thoughts, that part in us that constantly says things like, you're not good enough, and who do you think you are, and no one could ever love you, and why are you even trying this, you're gonna fail anyway, and you're not worthy, and all these things. It's very negative, it's mean, it judges you the entire time. Like, when you judge yourself and you put yourself down, that's usually that inner critic, or that internalized critical parent. And that part is the real villain or antagonist in your healing process of healing and integrating the inner child. Because, of course, every time you say these negative things to yourself now as an adult, who gets really hurt, who hears all that, is the inner child. So the inner child is already somewhat exiled, alone, abandoned, and frightened, left alone with all that trauma from back then. And then you just pile more and more and more and more onto it, with your ongoing judging yourself, criticizing yourself. Sometimes we can be really, really so mean to ourselves. And for me, for example, I didn't know until I started healing my inner child. And I started to develop more love and compassion with myself because of that inner child. I didn't know how hard I was on myself. And not just hard, and not just critical or judgmental. For me, it was so strong, that inner negative voice, that it was self-destructive to the point of self-harming, to the point of it tried to kill me. It was that bad. And again, when there is lots and lots of trauma, and there are other negative things, energies within you, I'm not going to talk about this right now, but it can basically hijack your thoughts, your mental body, your emotional body. That inner voice, it gets so dark and so self-destructive that it can become really dangerous for yourself. Like, I think Carl Gustav Jung calls it the animus, if it's a woman, and the anima if it's a man. And when the animus is so imbalanced, then it can basically try to really, really strongly harm its host. Like, the animus in the psyche of the woman, where that animus lives. So I think there is a correlation between the inner critic and the animus, but that's just psychological talk. It's not really that important for this matter, but what is important is that you start to become aware of your inner critic. Like, start to become aware of, where do you talk negatively to yourself in your head, or even maybe aloud? Oh God, I'm so stupid. Why did I do this again? I always do these stupid things like always and never. And In what situations? In what areas of your life? With what people involved? Like, become really, really, really super, super alert from now on how you talk to yourself and about the thoughts in your own head about yourself. And wherever they are negative, they are judgmental, or there's like pressure and stress, and nothing is ever enough, and nothing is ever good enough, and that's the inner critic. And I already said it in other videos. When you start to make contact with your inner child, and you start to make contact more with your emotions, and you feel your emotions more, and you work with triggers, like real life, whatever is happening in your life. If you're triggered, if someone pushes your buttons, if you have a difficult situation, a challenge, and all of a sudden you feel that fear, or you feel that anger, or whatever, that sadness, then look within. Like, take your time, go somewhere quiet and look within, and look what's coming up, and feel that emotion, and feel it in your body, and get a sense of the inner child, who most likely is the one who feels that emotion in the first place. And then at the same time, tried to become already the loving inner parent. And if nothing else, then just say to your inner child, as your own loving parent, it's okay. You are allowed to feel that. You are safe in me to feel this anger, to feel this fear. It's okay. I will not judge you for having these emotions. I feel them with you. I am right here with you. And I love you, and you're safe with me. And if you keep doing that, and more and more and more, that inner child will really trust you, the more clear that antagonist, that inner critic, that voice will become. You will start to be more alert about that voice. And then it's very, very, very important to not just ignore it, or to just pretend it's not there. Because when you just push that away, and it's like, oh, whatever, nothing, then everything we push away just becomes stronger. What you resist persists. So it's really important, whenever you hear yourself talking negatively about yourself, become aware as inner critic, and then say, okay, I hear you. I acknowledge you. Like, acknowledge it. That's very, very important. And then say something like, thank you for your opinion, but from now on, I choose to be more loving and compassionate with myself. From now on, I'm patient with myself, and I just choose, to cut myself some slack, to not judge myself anymore. And you just, it doesn't have to be a big complicated thing or a big complicated meditation. You just acknowledge the inner critic. You say, thank you for your opinion, but from now on I choose better. So that's all like connected, and it probably all happens at the same time. Maybe the inner critic shows up before the loving parent. Then it's even more important to develop that loving parent very early on. And this is very, very difficult in the beginning, because we're just not used to be nice to ourselves, sorry. So it will really help you to really open your heart. Open your heart for that little girl or that little boy that lives inside you that is so scared. And then imagine that mean, critical, judgmental, destructive inner critic that keeps hurting that inner child. Just imagine that for a moment. Imagine yourself as a 3, 4, 5-year-old little child, innocent, scared, alone. It's already scared. It's already alone. It's somewhere in a dark cave in your psyche, in your soul landscape. And there is no one. And it's been 20, 30, 40 years that it's sitting there. And all it ever gets to hear is, oh, you're not good enough. Look at you. You're so stupid. You can't do anything right. How does it make you feel? It's heartbreaking. So start to open your heart for yourself, for that little boy or girl that you once were and that still lives within you. I can assure you it does. It's the strongest inner part in us that kind of matters the most, because it steers and directs so much of what's going on in our lives in a very subconscious way that we are not aware of. But it really does. There's so much stuff going on, like all that trauma lives in that inner child, and that inner child doesn't know how to deal with it. That's why that trauma happened in the first place. Because when you were 3, 4, or 5 and something bad happened, you didn't know how to deal with it. It was overwhelming. So you froze that part and you split it off and you exiled it. So now as a grown-up, you can deal with it. You just need to become aware of it and consciously start the healing and the integration process. So again, the inner child, the inner loving parent, and the inner critic is like this trio that is very, very important to know about when you start the inner child healing journey. It's just not enough to just talk to your inner child. You need to develop the inner loving parent, and you need to become aware of the inner critic, and to start to disempower it, basically, because it will be very, very dominant, and it will basically run everything. It has basically the seat in your consciousness of the CEO, of the boss. It's the dictator, and it bosses everyone around. It bosses you around, the inner child, everyone. And so you basically need to come in, to step in as the boss of your own life, of your own inner world. And you say, you know what? No more. No more. And when you do this work for a while, you can even try to send this inner critic into retirement. Because it will never really go away completely. Like, you can kill it off. Again, that would just that would just make it stronger. But you can disempower it, and you can at some point send it basically into retirement, into vacation, I don't know, when you basically dethrone it. You take it off that power position in your own inner world, in your own psyche, and you just sit it somewhere. You can imagine like a round table, like King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. All your inner parts, you have so many more. They all sit around that table, and just sit the inner critic somewhere at that table. It's not higher than the others. It doesn't have more power than the others. Just sit it among the others. And again, it doesn't really help to try to send it away completely, to kill it off. So just sit it there and say, you have your place here among all the other parts. You are a part of me, so you're allowed to be here, but you're not better, you're not more powerful than the other parts. And you naturally will then less and less give power or attention or energy to that negative part, to that inner critic part, and more you will become more loving. That inner parent, that loving parent, will be strengthened more and more, but it needs your conscious attention, awareness, and commitment, and of course an open heart and love and compassion for yourself. That's so important, and patience. So for example, in the internal family system modality or the inner parts work, all these parts are called, like the negative parts, are called protectors, because they say there are no negative parts, there are no bad parts. And we develop these parts, like the inner critic, at some point for self-protection, for protecting that vulnerable part in us. But the irony is that it just ends up becoming stronger and stronger and hurting that vulnerable part in us, hurting that inner child in us. And then with that healing work that we do when we are adults, when we have the awareness, when we have the consciousness, then we can start to step in and we can say to these parts, you know what? You were once serving me, but now I don't need you anymore. And I really thank you. I thank you for your work. I thank you for protecting me, but now I don't need you anymore. So you can talk like this to your inner critic too, like, thank you for protecting me, and I hear you, but now I don't need you anymore, because from now on I choose to be loving to myself. From now on I choose to have love and compassion for myself. From now on I choose to whatever, be kind to my inner child. Like, talk to them. I know it sounds ridiculous in the beginning, but this is so effective. Talk to your inner child like the loving parent. Talk to your inner critic like a firm, assertive, sovereign CEO, boss person of your life and of your inner world. Because remember, you are the boss here. It's not him. It's not your parents anymore, although they live inside you as the internalized family complex, as Jung calls it, or the internalized mother complex, if you have a mother wound. For example, this lives inside you. So this is a topic for another video that has, of course, something to do with the inner child and the inner parent part, because at some point, and I would say very sooner than later, in your healing journey, you need to look at the mother wound and you need to look at the father wound. I mean, I don't know, depending on how you grew up, if you had both parents or not, or with whom you have the strongest trauma or wounding, I would suggest in any case do both. And developing a loving inner parent is the antidote. It's the antidote for the mother wound and the father wound and for the inner critic. So in that sense, it doesn't even matter what part is active and what's exactly going on and all the psychological theory about it. Just, if anything, take away from this video, when you start the inner child healing, which is my number one recommendation for starting any kind of healing journey, trauma healing, emotional healing, at the same time, start to become your own loving parent. Tell your inner child all the things it never heard from your mother, your father, because for whatever reason they couldn't, that you would have needed to hear, and make it feel loved, make it feel safe. And number 3, know about the inner critic, the critical voice, the internalized negative voices of your childhood, of your parents maybe, or also teachers and stuff like that tell you constantly you're not good enough, that constantly tell you, I don't know, you're unworthy, and you judge yourself and you treat yourself, not very well. And start to acknowledge that inner critic. Say, yes, okay, thanks. Thank you for protecting me once. I hear you, but I don't need you anymore. And I choose to treat myself now, from now on, with much more love and compassion and patience. And when you do that on a continuous basis, that inner critic will just lose its power over you. And it will retreat into the background, again, sit it at the round table together with all the other inner parts, It doesn't not have more power over you than anyone else. And things will become much, much easier already. And lastly, I already mentioned it, healing modalities like inner parts work, inner family system can help. And I said it many times before, I strongly recommend to start at the same time or very, very early on in your healing process, any kind of body work, somatic work, somatic experiencing. Because again, the trauma lives in the body, not just the mind, the psyche, the soul. And the emotions are strongly linked with the body on the somatic level. So the sooner you get to that, you can get access to that level, the easier and the quicker your healing process will be. So there are many more techniques, there are many more modalities, but I think that's the gist for now. I really hope it was helpful for you. I wish you all the best and good luck for your healing process with healing your inner child, becoming your own loving inner parent, disempowering the inner critic more and more and more so that you can have a much better life. That you can be much more compassionate and kind with yourself. It's just so important, and it will make everything so much easier. I promise you that. And yeah, good luck and see you soon. Bye-bye.